There is a kind of pain many women do not talk about. It is the pain of staring at your phone and wondering why someone who says he cares about you can go an entire day without checking on you. It is typing a message, deleting it, typing another one, and finally sending, "Are you okay?" Not because you really think something happened to him, but because you want to know why he has not spoken to you. Then you see that he has been online. He watched your story. He liked somebody else's post. And suddenly, a simple unanswered message begins to feel like a statement about your worth. So you start wondering, am I asking for too much? Should I text again? Maybe I should be more interesting. Maybe I should post something beautiful so he remembers me. Maybe if I become the kind of woman he wants, he will finally choose me. But what if the real question is not, how do I make him give me attention? What if the real question is, why am I fighting so hard to receive what someone should be willing to give freely? And there is something even deeper. Sometimes the attention you are begging another person to give you has become so important because somewhere along the way, you started using human attention to answer a question only God can truly settle. Am I valuable? Stay with me, because before this message ends, I want to show you why a godly woman can desire love deeply, desire marriage sincerely, and still refuse to beg anyone to see her. Imagine a young woman named Naomi. Naomi loves God. She serves in church. She works hard. She tries to live right. She has dreams for her future, and one of those dreams is marriage. Most of her friends know this. And lately, weddings seem to be everywhere. One Saturday, she is helping one friend arrange flowers for her wedding. The following weekend, another friend sends engagement pictures into their group chat. Then her younger cousin calls. "I'm getting married." Naomi smiles. She congratulates her. She means it. But after the call ends, she sits quietly on the edge of her bed. She opens Instagram. Another engagement. Another bridal shower. Another anniversary post. She puts the phone down. And for the first time that evening, she allows herself to admit what she has been hiding. God, when will it be my turn? Maybe you know that feeling. You are genuinely happy for other people, but their happiness touches an ache inside you. And then family pressure makes it worse. You go home for a gathering, and before you have even finished eating, someone asks, "So, when are we coming for your wedding?" Everybody laughs. You smile because you do not want to make the room uncomfortable. But later, you remember the question. You remember your age. You remember the relationship that failed. You remember the man who told you he was not ready, only to become serious with someone else months later. You remember the person you thought might be the answer to years of prayer, but somehow you were always the one initiating everything. You called first. You checked on him first. You planned the conversations. You excused his inconsistency. When he disappeared, you told yourself he was busy. When he returned, you were so relieved that you never asked why he disappeared. And slowly, without realizing it, you stopped asking, "Is this relationship healthy?" And started asking, "What can I do so he doesn't leave?" That is where attention becomes dangerous. Not because wanting attention is wrong. Please understand this. There is nothing ungodly about wanting to be loved. There is nothing immature about wanting someone to call you, check on you, spend time with you, listen to you, celebrate you, and make you feel important in their life. Healthy relationships require attention. But there is a difference between desiring attention and begging for it. Begging begins when you repeatedly abandon your dignity just to keep someone interested. It happens when you accept crumbs because you are terrified of having an empty plate. And sometimes it does not look like begging. Sometimes it looks like over-explaining. You send a long paragraph trying to convince someone why they should care that they hurt you. Sometimes it looks like chasing. You are always initiating contact because you are afraid that if you stop, the relationship will disappear. Sometimes it looks like performing. You change the way you dress, talk, laugh, worship, post, or behave because you are studying what gets their attention. Sometimes it looks like jealousy. You constantly compare yourself with every woman around him. Is she prettier? Is she younger? Is she more successful? Does he laugh more when she talks? And before long, You are competing in a contest nobody officially announced. Naomi found herself there. There was a man she had been talking to for several months. Let us call him Daniel. Daniel was not cruel. That made everything more confusing. He could be incredibly attentive one week and distant the next. Sometimes he talked about the future. Sometimes he disappeared emotionally. One night, he would stay on the phone with Naomi for 2 hours. Then 3 days would pass with almost nothing. And every time Naomi decided to pull back, Daniel would send just enough attention to bring her hope back. Thinking about you. I miss talking to you. You know you're special to me. Those words kept her emotionally invested. But his actions never gave the relationship clarity. Have you ever experienced something like that? Not enough commitment to feel secure, but just enough attention to keep you waiting. That middle place can exhaust a woman. Because you are not really together. But emotionally, you are not free either. And Naomi began praying. God, please make Daniel see that I am the woman for him. Notice the prayer. She was not asking God for wisdom anymore. She was asking God to convince somebody. There is a difference. One evening, after another confusing conversation, Naomi opened her Bible. She came across the story of Leah. And suddenly, she saw herself. Genesis chapter 29 tells us about Leah, Rachel, and Jacob. Jacob loved Rachel. But through Laban's deception, Jacob married Leah first. Scripture tells us plainly that Jacob loved Rachel more. Think about Leah's emotional world. She was married, but she did not feel chosen. She had the relationship status many single women were praying for, yet she still desperately wanted the heart of the man beside her. That alone teaches us something important. Marriage cannot heal every wound of rejection. A wedding does not automatically give you security. A ring cannot convince your heart that you are valuable if your identity depends entirely on another human being validating you. Look closely at the names Leah gave her first children. When Reuben was born, Leah essentially hoped, now my husband will love me. Then Simeon came. Then Levi. And with Levi, she hoped, now my husband will become attached to me. Can you hear the ache? Maybe now. Maybe this will do it. Maybe if I give enough. Maybe if I become enough. Maybe if I prove enough. Then he will finally love me. Women still live this story. Maybe not by naming children, but by sacrificing boundaries. Maybe if I am always available, he will choose me. Maybe if I never disagree, he will choose me. Maybe if I ignore the red flags, he will choose me. Maybe if I become physically intimate with him, he will stay. Maybe if I lend him money again, he will see how supportive I am. Maybe if I tolerate things that hurt me, he will eventually appreciate my loyalty. But love that requires you to continuously betray yourself to keep it is costing you too much. And something beautiful happens later in Leah's story. When her fourth son is born, she names him Judah and says, in Genesis chapter 29 verse 35, "This time I will praise the Lord." Something shifted. For the first 3 children, her language kept circling around Jacob. Will he love me now? Will he become attached to me now? But with Judah, her eyes turned toward God. This time I will praise the Lord. Jacob had not suddenly changed. Her circumstances were not magically perfect. But the center of her attention began to move. And perhaps that is where your freedom begins too. Not when the person finally texts. Not when someone proposes. Not when everybody who rejected you realizes what they lost. But when your heart can say, "This time, I will turn my eyes toward God." Because a godly woman does not refuse to beg for attention because she thinks she is better than everybody. She refuses because she is learning where her identity comes from. Psalm chapter 139 verses 13 to 14 describes a God who formed you intentionally. That means your value did not begin when somebody found you attractive. Your worth was not created by a relationship status. Before anybody called you beautiful, God knew you. Before anybody chose you, God formed you. Before anyone rejected you, your life already carried dignity. And that changes how you date. It changes what you tolerate. It changes how long you remain in confusing situations. It changes what you call love. Because when you know you have value, you stop treating basic consideration like an extraordinary gift. But here is where we need balance. Do not turn this message into, "If he doesn't text me every hour, he doesn't deserve me." No. People have jobs. People have responsibilities. People have difficult seasons. Some people communicate differently. Healthy love requires patience, grace, conversation, and understanding. The issue is not whether someone occasionally gets busy. The issue is a consistent pattern that leaves you carrying the entire relationship. If you stopped initiating, would there still be a relationship? That is a difficult question. But sometimes you need to ask it. If you stopped reminding someone that you exist, would they remember to make room for you? If you stopped performing, would they still enjoy who you really are? If you expressed a need respectfully, would they listen, or punish you with silence? If you established a boundary, would they respect it, or suddenly withdraw affection? These questions are not about playing games. They are about paying attention to patterns. Jesus said in Matthew chapter 7 verse 16, "You will know them by their fruits." That principle matters beyond identifying false teachers. Fruit reveals what a tree is producing. And in relationships, patterns reveal things words sometimes hide. Someone can say, "I care about you." Look at the fruit. Someone can say, "I see a future with you." Look at the fruit. Someone can say, "I'm serious." Look at the fruit. Are there honesty, consistency, respect, responsibility, kindness, patience, and clarity growing in the relationship? Or are you surviving mainly on promises? Because potential is not the same as character. And chemistry is not the same as compatibility. That person may give you butterflies and still be unable to give you a healthy relationship. Here is another truth that may be uncomfortable. Sometimes we do not miss the person. We miss the attention. Think about it. You finally decide to walk away from someone who treated you inconsistently. For 3 weeks, you are doing better. Then one evening, your phone lights up. "Hey stranger." Your heart jumps. Suddenly you remember the good conversations. You remember the compliments. You remember the chemistry. And you forget the nights you cried. You forget the confusion. You forget how small you felt. You forget the prayers asking God for strength to let go. Why? Because attention can feel like love when you have been lonely for a long time. That is why loneliness must be handled carefully. Loneliness can make temporary attention feel like destiny. A woman who has been emotionally hungry for years can mistake crumbs for a feast. So do not only pray, "God, send me somebody." Sometimes pray, "God, teach me how to live fully while I wait. Teach me how to build healthy friendships. Teach me how to enjoy my own company. Teach me how to develop my gifts. Teach me how to serve. Teach me how to heal. Teach me how to become emotionally healthy. Teach me how to recognize love instead of merely craving attention." Because singleness is not an empty waiting room where your real life has not started yet. Your life is happening now. Your relationship with God matters now. Your career matters now. Your friendships matter now. Your emotional health matters now. Your purpose matters now. Your joy matters now. And marriage, if it becomes part of your story, should not have to rescue you from a life you refuse to live. This is one of the reasons Ruth's story is so powerful. Ruth had experienced devastating loss. She was a widow. Her future was uncertain. Yet when we meet her in the fields of Boaz, she is not running around Bethlehem desperately trying to convince somebody to marry her. She is working. She is caring for Naomi. She is moving faithfully through the responsibility in front of her. And Boaz notices her character. Ruth chapter 2 shows that he had heard about what she had done for Naomi. He noticed more than her appearance. He saw faithfulness. He saw character. He saw courage. Now, Ruth's story does not mean that if you work hard enough, God owes you a Boaz. The Bible is not giving us a formula for obtaining a husband. But Ruth teaches us something better. Your life can have meaning while your future is still uncertain. You do not have to suspend your purpose until somebody chooses you. And perhaps you are in that season right now. You are watching friends get married. Maybe your younger sister already has children. Maybe you thought you would have a family by this age. And sometimes you feel embarrassed because the life you imagined at 25 does not look like the life you have at 30, 35, or beyond. Please hear this carefully. Do not allow somebody else's timeline to pressure you into accepting a relationship that damages your peace. Family pressure cannot build a healthy marriage for you. Instagram cannot choose a spouse for you. Your biological clock cannot examine someone's character. Loneliness cannot discern spiritual maturity. Fear is a terrible matchmaker. That is why Proverbs chapter 4 verse 23 says, "Keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it is the wellspring of life." Guarding your heart does not mean building walls so nobody can enter. It means becoming wise about what you allow to shape you. And sometimes guarding your heart means accepting what somebody's behavior is telling you. Naomi eventually did something she had avoided for months. She had an honest conversation with Daniel. Not an angry conversation. Not a dramatic ultimatum. She simply said, "I value what we have, but this uncertainty is becoming unhealthy for me. I need clarity about what we are building." And Daniel gave the answer she had feared. "I really care about you, but I'm not ready for anything serious." Naomi wanted to negotiate. She wanted to say, "I can wait." She wanted to prove she was worth choosing. But then she realized something. Daniel was not asking her to wait. She had appointed herself to wait. That realization hurt. Because sometimes nobody actually promised us a future. We created one from hints. We took occasional affection and built an imaginary commitment around it. So Naomi cried. She prayed. She missed him. There were nights she wanted to text. There were mornings she checked her phone hoping his name would appear. Healing was not dramatic. It was a series of small decisions. She stopped checking whether he watched her stories. She stopped posting things secretly designed for him to notice. She stopped asking mutual friends about him. She stopped rereading old conversations whenever loneliness came. And she started asking herself a different question. Not, "How do I make him miss me?" but, "What is God trying to heal in me?" That question changed everything. Because sometimes the deepest issue is not the person who withheld attention. It is the wound inside us that made their attention feel necessary for survival. Maybe your wound came from childhood. Perhaps praise was rare. Maybe you learned early that being useful was how you received affection. So now you overgive in relationships. You solve everybody's problems. You become the therapist, financial helper, prayer partner, emergency contact, encourager, and emotional support system. And somewhere inside you is a quiet belief. If I am useful enough, they will not leave me. But love is not supposed to be wages you earn through exhaustion. Maybe rejection shaped you. Someone cheated. Someone walked away. Someone chose another woman. And now every new relationship feels like an audition. You are constantly trying to prove, "I'm better than the last woman." But you cannot build peace while constantly competing with ghosts. This is where spiritual growth becomes deeply practical. Romans chapter 12 verse 2 speaks about being transformed by the renewing of your mind. That means some patterns change when our thinking changes. So instead of, "If he leaves, I must not be enough," you learn to say, "Someone's decision does not define my worth." Instead of, "I need to keep him interested," you ask, "Can I be myself in this relationship?" Instead of, "I've invested 3 years, so I cannot leave," you ask, "Is staying wise simply because leaving hurts?" Instead of, "Everybody is getting married except me," you remind yourself, "Another woman's season is not evidence that God has forgotten me." And instead of constantly praying for God to change somebody else, sometimes you pray, "Lord, give me courage to accept what you are showing me." That prayer can change your life. Because sometimes clarity hurts before it heals. And please understand, becoming a woman who does not beg for attention does not mean becoming cold. It does not mean pretending you do not care. It does not mean playing hard to get. It does not mean deliberately ignoring messages so someone will chase you. That is still manipulation. A godly woman can communicate. She can say, "I miss you." She can initiate a conversation. She can express affection. She can tell someone what she needs. She can apologize. She can fight for a relationship that both people are committed to repairing. Strength is not silence. The difference is that she does not repeatedly humiliate herself trying to force mutuality where there is none. She can love someone and still recognize, "I cannot make you choose me." She can be disappointed and still say, "I will survive this." She can desire marriage and still say, "I will not make marriage an idol." She can be lonely and still say, "Loneliness will not choose for me." She can watch another woman receive what she prayed for and still whisper, "God, help me celebrate her without despising my own life." That is maturity. And there is one more area we rarely talk about. Attention does not only come from romantic relationships. Sometimes women who feel unseen begin searching for validation everywhere. Social media, work, church, friendships. You post a picture and check repeatedly to see how many people responded. You accomplish something, but you cannot enjoy it until somebody praises you. You serve faithfully, but resentment grows when nobody notices. You become the strong friend everybody calls, but nobody asks how you are doing. And eventually you feel invisible. This is why Jesus' words in Matthew chapter 6 are so freeing. Jesus repeatedly talks about the Father who sees what is done in secret. Think about that phrase. Your Father sees. The prayer nobody applauded. He sees. The temptation you resisted. He sees. The night you cried and still got up the next morning. He sees. The boundary you maintained even though it cost you a relationship. He sees. The years you have served without recognition. He sees. The private healing nobody knows you are doing. He sees. There is something powerful about becoming secure in being seen by God. It does not eliminate our need for human relationships. God created us for community. But it removes the unbearable pressure of asking people to give us what only God can ultimately provide. So what do you do if you realize you have been begging for attention? First, do not shame yourself. Become curious. Ask, what am I afraid will happen if this person stops choosing me? Sit with the answer. Maybe the answer is, I'm afraid nobody else will want me. I'm afraid I'm getting older. I'm afraid I will be alone. I'm afraid people will think something is wrong with me. I'm afraid I wasted too many years. Bring that fear honestly before God. Second, observe patterns instead of promises. Do not obsess over one wonderful weekend or one terrible day. Look at the pattern. What has this relationship consistently produced in your life? Peace, growth, honesty, respect, or constant anxiety, confusion, jealousy, and insecurity? Third, rebuild the parts of your life you neglected while chasing someone's attention. Call your friends. Return to that course. Start the project. Exercise. Read. Serve. Rest. Develop your career. Spend meaningful time with family. Seek wise Christian community. Your life needs more than one person at its center. Fourth, learn to communicate without begging. There is a difference between saying, I value consistent communication in a relationship, and sending 15 messages trying to convince someone to respond. State what matters. Listen to their response. Then watch their actions. Fifth, pray for discernment more than outcomes. Instead of only, God, please let this relationship work. Try, God, show me the truth about this relationship, even if the truth is not what I want. That is a courageous prayer. And finally, remember that waiting is not wasting. Isaiah chapter 40 verse 31 speaks about those who wait on the Lord renewing their strength. Biblical waiting is not passive despair. It is continuing to trust God while you do not know the ending. Maybe marriage is part of your future. Maybe your journey will look different from what you once imagined. None of us should pretend to know what God has not revealed. But this we can know. You do not need to destroy yourself trying to control the future. You can trust the character of God while the details remain uncertain. Months after Naomi walked away from that confusing relationship, something surprising happened. Daniel contacted her. And for a moment, the old feelings returned. But Naomi noticed something different. Not in him. In herself. Months earlier, one message from him could change her entire week. Now she could read his name on her screen without feeling that her future was sitting inside that notification. She realized. I still care about him. But I no longer need him to choose me so I can feel chosen. And that was the victory. Not a new boyfriend. Not an engagement ring. Not Daniel crawling back with a dramatic proposal. The victory was freedom. She had stopped handing another human being the authority to decide how valuable she felt. And maybe that is the freedom God wants to begin developing in you. You may still desire marriage. You may still pray for companionship. You may still have nights when the house feels too quiet. You may still attend weddings and wonder when your own story will change. Faith does not require you to pretend those feelings do not exist. Bring them to God. Tell Him, Lord, I want love. I want companionship. I want to be known deeply. But please do not let my desire become desperation. Do not let loneliness make decisions for me. Do not let comparison rush me. Do not let rejection define me. Do not let attention become my addiction. Teach me to recognize healthy love. Teach me to walk away from confusion when wisdom requires it. Teach me to communicate honestly. Teach me to wait without putting my life on hold. And above everything else, teach me to know who I am in you. Because one day, you may look back and realize that one of the greatest things God did during your waiting season was not bringing someone into your life. It was bringing you back to yourself. The woman who could laugh without wondering who was watching. The woman who could walk into a room without comparing herself with every other woman. The woman who could celebrate somebody else's engagement without interpreting it as evidence of her own rejection. The woman who could receive attention without becoming addicted to it. The woman who could experience rejection without losing her identity. The woman who could love deeply without abandoning herself. The woman who finally understood. I do not have to beg anyone to recognize the value God has already placed in me. And if someone cannot see that value, you do not need to hate them. You do not need revenge. You do not need to make them jealous. You do not need to become successful just so they regret losing you. You can simply release them. Because sometimes the strongest response to rejection is not proving someone wrong. It is becoming peaceful enough that you no longer need them to admit they were wrong. Godly women do not beg for attention. Not because they never feel lonely. Not because they never cry. Not because rejection does not hurt. Not because they believe they are too important to pursue relationships. They do not beg because they are learning that love cannot be forced. They are learning that attention is not the same as commitment. They are learning that being wanted is not the same as being valued. They are learning that marriage is beautiful, but it is not their identity. And most importantly, they are learning that before they ever become someone's wife, they already belong to God. So if you are staring at your phone tonight wondering whether you should send one more message, if you are exhausted from trying to convince somebody to see you, if you have spent months asking, what is wrong with me? Perhaps tonight, ask a different question. What would change if I truly believed that my worth was never theirs to determine? Maybe you would stop chasing. Maybe you would finally have the conversation you have been avoiding. Maybe you would establish the boundary you keep postponing. Maybe you would stop competing with another woman. Maybe you would forgive yourself for staying too long. Maybe you would open your hands and say, God, I wanted this relationship. But I want your wisdom more than I want my preferred outcome. And maybe tomorrow morning, nothing outside you will have changed. The phone may still be quiet. The relationship may still be uncertain. You may still be single. But something inside you can begin changing. You can wake up and live. You can pray. You can work. You can build. You can laugh. You can heal. You can grow. You can serve. You can become. And you can trust God without demanding that He write your story according to your timetable. Your life is too valuable to spend it standing outside someone's heart, knocking endlessly, asking them to notice you. There is still purpose in your hands. There is still growth ahead of you. There are still people to love, gifts to develop, prayers to pray, places to serve, lessons to learn, and beautiful parts of God's character you have not yet discovered. So walk forward. Not bitter. Not arrogant. Not closed to love. But wiser. Softer toward God. Stronger in your identity. And free. If this message described a season you are living through right now, tell me in the comments what God is teaching you about your worth, your waiting, or your relationships. Your words may encourage another woman who thought she was struggling alone. And if you know a woman who has been questioning her value because someone refuses to give her the love or attention she keeps chasing, share this message with her. Subscribe if you want to continue growing with us through honest conversations about faith, relationships, purpose, healing, and becoming the woman God is shaping you to be. And tonight, remember this. You can desire to be chosen without begging to be chosen. You can desire marriage without making marriage your identity. You can love without losing yourself. And you can walk away from the exhausting pursuit of human validation knowing that the God who formed you, knows you, sees you, and loves you is still worthy of your trust, even when you do not yet know how your story will end.